The Cyr Wheel, I think as far as what makes Cyr Wheel such a unique modality is the fact that it can really move in any direction. It's light enough to be picked up, so it can be a ground element, and it's not an aerial apparatus, but of course you can actually pick up the apparatus. And so there's just so many different ways of forms of expression to move in and out of it. You don't have to be connected to it. You can create predictable patterns of movement with the wheel that you can accentuate with your body. So I just think in the realms of being a circus arts and discipline, or even just as an exercise, it just has so many variations to it that you can express yourself through, that it makes it very unique as any sort of apparatus, really.
I fell in love with Cyr Wheel a little bit after I had one. I feel like most people, they fall in love with it the first time they see it, and I was sort of like, I want to try this, but I'm not so sure. But the second I started moving with it, I really fell in love with it and realized how much I could utilize my dance training with the apparatus. And that's not to say that I didn't enjoy or love watching other people, but it really took some courage for me to get on this apparatus and realize that it was worth the time I spent training. Yeah.
I would say for myself, I fell in love with it and would continue to fall in love with it, like many times over for different reasons. I think really the first time when I experienced it, I fell in love with just playing with it, not knowing what I'm doing with it or whatever. Just the movement and being in it and rolling around was really fun because it was a different sensation than I've ever had before. There are millions of cartwheels, but never inside of a wheel where you're at the actual spoke and feeling how smooth that rotation is when you're actually in a wheel. So things like that very initially, but then later as I began to become more proficient, I started to really feel like this could actually be an extension of my arm or my leg. And so it was a little bit of a greater expression. If I was happy, I could be happy with it, and maybe some of that would show through in what I'm doing. And I think thirdly, which is kind of integrated in the whole thing, is realizing that it's a low impact activity. And so where I was really pulling away from intense gymnastics, competitive gymnastics, and just as we get older, you become a little wiser, you don't put the hours on your body to be able to handle stress loads, you kind of have to back off of a lot of things. And so I really missed that as well. And the Cyr Wheel was definitely a way that I can get back into like rotational forward and backwards and just challenge myself again in a really physical sense. So I think from that aspect, it's every time I'm learning something new again, I realize how much I love doing this apparatus. Do I consider myself an athlete, artist, or fitness guru? I would say the artist and athlete. You can be an athlete and not an artist. You can be an artist but not very athletic, but still have amazing expression, just naturally or learn. But the challenge for me is to really bring my athleticism into artistry. And a little of both, that goes back and forth. As far as a guru, I don't think that's something that necessarily I would ever label myself. However, we both get a lot of people from all around the world that contact us probably on a weekly and a monthly basis, just asking for advice on this or that. And I say more than anything, that really puts me in a good place to know that I can help someone that's halfway across the world. And so overall, that's just a really good feeling. And I think there's a lot of kindness if people call you a guru or a Yoda or something like that. But that's not necessarily something for me to internalize, and that's more of something that that's for them to banter with and play with. So yeah, definitely the first two are integration of what I feel.
I would say I'm firstly an artist, and that dance is very athletic, so I'm an athlete as well. And Cyr Wheel is very athletic, but that the primary emphasis of dance is the artistic side, along with using your body as the instrument. So it requires athleticism and physicality, but also musicality and creativity and artistry. And then in terms of fitness, I would say that I do teach gyrotonic and other fitness modalities and dance and Cyr Wheel. So I am involved in fitness and I enjoy it physically, but yeah, I would have to agree with you. It's not so much I'm not a guru. The best tip the best tip I could give somebody who's looking to get into Cyr Wheel is to get a wheel or take a class, and of course they can contact us if they have any questions.
Yeah, and I think that's saying it the best right there. They can contact us because we really have contacts all around the world, and so I think what you just said is getting your hands on a wheel.
Yeah.
And that's some of the best advice. Is just it doesn't matter what it is, but if you can get your hands on a wheel, that's just going to be, it's physically going to be in your hands. But I think the other side of that is the quality of what you're getting and who you're getting information from, and and not even so much that, but your aspirations of what you think. Would you say that's what you think it's going to be isn't always the same. So it's nice to have someone guide you, and they don't tell you, well, you have to do this, you have to do that, because it's not really about that at all. It's really just about what you find interesting about it and exploring that aspect of it. What you do with it could be completely different than anything that I do or you've seen anybody else doing, but if you enjoy having it in your hands and have the right person to help you express movement or get a little bit in better shape because you just enjoy it, I think that would be key, is to really seek out good information, then go ahead and invest your time in purchasing a wheel or getting a wheel or borrowing a wheel. And if it just comes down to making that connection, you can definitely, no matter where you are in the world, I think you can find someone that's at least within 100 miles of you. I know that seems like a lot, but...
And also that it is a specialty apparatus, so it's not something you can just go pick up at a gym or a sporting goods store. So yeah, regardless of where you're located, we're happy to help guide you down your path. For me, I realized this was not so much a hobby, but my future profession. Pretty much once I became decently proficient at it, since I am a performer, it so quickly brought my performance capacity to the next level. And it did not take long for me to be hired as a solo artist without auditioning with 1,000 other women like you normally would in a dance situation. It kind of put me on my own category and I started to carve my path on my own as a solo artist. And that happened pretty much right away once I was able to, stay on the wheel and do a couple things. So,
for me, when did I realize this was more of a profession than a hobby? I don't know. It's still a hobby, and it's just something I do for fun. And I know that's not like a really great answer, but in a way it's very true, because when I started, I was just enjoying myself and exploring, and I've just really absolutely continued to do that. And it's like many things in life where finding something you're passionate about and just doing it, and that energy definitely attracts people who are looking and seeking the same type of energy that you're putting out there. And so they want to find out a little bit about it. And for me, it's been a slow transition from one industry to the next. But even as I say that, having a gymnastics club and then for well over 16 years, and then closing that and transitioning into performing arts, but I'm still just as passionate and love gymnastics, teaching it, doing it, just being involved with it. And so that just sort of flows right into this next transition of the things I do. I bring that aspect of my life into this one. So really, it's not so much about this all of a sudden becoming work and business. It just becomes an extension of what I do in life, because as a lot of us know now, we're going through some definitely difficult times with everything that's going on in the world. And so all of a sudden things change, and you find yourself doing something slightly different for income. But if you kind of stay on that path of just really knowing that you're going to do each day what you want to do and enjoy your life, then those other things, those necessities do seem to come around. And so, it was a slow transition for me, but it's definitely my income, my passion.
Some challenges I've faced in my career would include injuries. One in particular was a neck injury, and the recovery was very difficult. I was definitely affected in a major way from my career to my life as just a human being, and I dislocated my skull, and it created a whole shift in my cervical spine. And anyway, it created a little bit of paralysis through my body and blindness, deafness. Just for like 9 months I was going through this. But that brought me to gyrotonic, and specifically gyrotonic with physical therapy. And it was a great experience. I really had to start over and relearn what it meant to move and why I cared about it, and how to do it well. And I really, it was at that point that I really started to learn my body on a deeper level. And every day is a challenge in that capacity. But I'm very lucky to have gyrotonic and these fitness gurus in gyrotonic who really helped me become stable and sturdy again, and able to dance and do Cyr Wheel as well.
Injury is one of probably the most, especially as any athlete or performing artist, probably one of the most devastating, whether it's dislocated thumb or something like that, where you're just really sidelined. And I would say I've had a few of my injuries, and that comes with the territory or that learning curve, but nothing really traumatic. And so in that sense, I've been very fortunate. I would say the types of struggles and overcoming things for me, has been mostly a constant reminder to myself of really what's important in life. I've had things just fairly recently actually, my truck, my Spinovation truck that I put all this time and energy, that I travel all across the United States doing workshops, and we do performances, and we do LA fitness expos, and we do all this stuff with my truck, and it's got all my equipment in there and all these different things. And so one day I look out the window and my truck's been stolen, and so I'm thinking, that's everything I got is in that truck, right? And a month goes by and still nothing. I report it and all this. I was actually traveling and just doing a show or something, and it just happened to be on my birthday. Get a phone call on my birthday. The police say they found my truck, and of course I get to it when I finally got home, and got all these storage fees I got to pay. I open up my truck, and like it's just ripped apart on the inside, and like wires hanging out of the dash, GPS, all this stuff is stolen. But in the back are all my wheels, every single one. Anything else, like $60,000 worth of equipment, was gone. But all my wheels were there, and it was like, okay, so I guess I can start over with this. But you know, again, I didn't ask for this, but the community at large reached out, and they raised like $4,000 or $5,000 for me to use to get my truck back in a running condition. So that was just amazing. And so of course, you know, my truck's better than new now. And so like these types of adversities that on a more, like this could have been like the thing to throw in the towel on, you know, like someone's business burning down. But again, you just go back to the things that you're passionate about, and knowing that you are surrounded by a community that cares. And if you've been helping people along the way, those things actually do come back around. And so I would say it is about overcoming diversity for me, but at the same time, it's more of having the right the attitude and knowing what's really important. Did I have mentors and guides on my journey to where I am today? And the answer would be absolutely yes. So many, too many to even name. From the time I'm growing up through my collegiate career and in performing arts with health and fitness, and even teachers having nothing to do with health and fitness, but just great teachers in college that really inspired, you know, me from the things that they do, and I can see how they just view life and go about their daily activity and the way they carry themselves. However, just to bring things up to date and currently, definitely Courtney's been a great inspiration in my athletic performances. And just an example of that is I was more typical movement and a little bit more stoic in the performing arts, at least with the wheel. But being able to work with Courtney, and she has a different eye and vision for dance and movement, and so as a teacher instructor, she's able to look at someone's body and know like these types of movements would be good for you. Learn this phrase, or helps me learn something that I wouldn't normally do because I don't have that vocabulary. But then lo and behold, when I step back and look at, like, wow, that's really cool. I need to do some more of that. And I would say in some of my last performances, I definitely got some compliments about, wow, you had a lot of dance in this one. And that's like a compliment that I normally wouldn't have gotten and if I'd stayed on that same path. So I think really, and it's always about this with anything that you do, is really challenging yourself and finding someone that's going to push you out of your comfort zone. Because if you're really just staying, of course, we all know, in that comfort zone, that's a wonderful place to be. But at the same time, to grow as an artist and having the fulfillment of seeing, and feeling the and having the appreciation for growth, I mean, you just have to be uncomfortable, and you have to put yourself in a situation where you're humiliated or embarrassed or just kind of grinding through, and that's where it all starts. But always the rewards for being able to put yourself through that is inspiring for yourself and others.
I agree. I definitely had mentors through my entire life. Going to Alvin Ailey, there were so many teachers that they still mean the world to me, and without them, I don't know how I would have become a professional dancer. And I started dance when I was 12, which is really late. And to, have been put into this program and this very intense dance program and have these teachers, they really got me to where I needed to be by that age within a year. And then, for the rest of my career and training, there were just always those teachers and mentors that helped me along the way. And right back at you, Sam. You've definitely been a mentor to me with Cyr Wheel and also acrobatics, and understanding how to not get frustrated with like sports mental training and that sort of thing. So I'm still working on that. In dance, at least in my experience, I didn't learn how to handle certain emotions or fear or something, and Sam just has that under control, and it's really inspiring, and it helps me deeply. So thank you.
You're welcome. And I'll add to that just a little bit because I think it's worth mentioning. Again, as far as like the really staunch mentors that I've had through gymnastics, again, so many to name, but one person that doesn't always get named, it kind of seems to slip through the cracks, but when I was competing in gymnastics, we had one of the best sports mental trainers really on the planet at that time, and really had carved that as a very specific niche in athletics, both for professional and Olympics, which he is very ingrained in. And it just so happened that he worked out of Cal State Fullerton, so he worked intensively with the Cal State Fullerton gymnastics team. And his name is Kenneth Revisa, and he's now passed, but he was my mental trainer for a couple years, a little bit more. And I just gained so much insight from him, and the things that he taught us, I mean, I just practice weekly, daily, and integrate into my teaching style, and really thinking anything that we do athletically or physically, or physically in the sense of like our work trade, it's really, those material things are just a way to inspire someone or teach them about a better way of understanding life. So if you're passionate about the wheel, but you really don't like to do exercise or eat well, at some point it comes around where you realize to be healthy and be able to get up the next morning and be at the top of your game and actually do the thing you're passionate about, you might want to start thinking about some of the things you put in your body, or how late you stay up, or something like that. But with the right type of guidance and the person that's really teaching you how to be calm and have a game plan for stress management, I mean, it really starts there with how what we have control over, and that's actually our bodies. And so yeah, I would say Kenneth Revisa made a huge impact on things that I do then and all the way till now, and hopefully forever.
I consider success an ongoing process. It's definitely a different, my career path is not the same as somebody who goes to school to become a lawyer, and then they do this until they retire, and they have this whole system set up for themselves. And you know, in our career, it's not like that. You're an independent contractor all the time, so there's a lot of ups and downs, and successes are can be continuous, but they generally are not. I would say with the shows and such that I performed in New York 8 to 10 times a week, like that's considered being a successful artist. And but I would say that was just the beginning for me. And so I think success is an ongoing journey and effort. And hopefully one day retirement is an option, but we'll see.
Have I achieved success? What's my definition of success? I think in some senses, in the general terms, yes, I've been successful in a lot of instances, but it took a lot of course, failures to get to those successes. But really, it's just one continuum and one journey that you're on. I think to put it very, very simply is when you look in the mirror at the end of the day, can you say that you put your best effort forward to do as much as you can for yourself or helping others or whatever it is in a very positive light? If you can do that honestly, then you were successful that day, and if you can do it the next day and at the end of your life, you would have been a successful person. And there's really not necessarily a monetary value put on that, because there's a lot of people that make a lot of money that can't look in the mirror and say that because of whatever their circumstances are. So I think it's definitely a balance, because we can't make it through this life and be successful but then have to beg for money and put other people in a bad situation so that you can feel successful at what you do. So there's definitely this mush of values that you got to take into consideration. But I think that yeah, like you said, it's an ongoing thing, and everybody defines success differently. But we just want to be able to be comfortable with ourselves, and again, when you are, that just kind of spreads to the person next to you. So if I could lead any, does it have to be a single person? I could think of a few people I'd like to lead through a Cyr Wheel session. 4 people come to mind in particular right now, and it would be the VRLU crew here. So, you know, I would take them through a Cyr Wheel session because I know capturing something and being mesmerized and seeing something, but also being part of it, on it, is a completely different thing. So I don't know, I think that would be on the top of my list. Outside of that, you know, it's just kind of, you know, I would say I'd put some of my family members on it that would probably never in a million years want to be on it, like, you know, my mom or something like that, or, you know, but just because it would just be funny. But really, you know, I would be sincere about saying I'd like to see the VRLU staff on there. That'd be something.
I can agree with that VRLU team on Cyr Wheels. I draw my inspiration from everything. One thing I like to practice is I take very long walks and try to keep my eyes in the forward direction the whole time and not text and that sort of thing, and listen to music. That I can choreograph an entire 10-hour show in that process. Like, it's amazing how creating stimulation through your eyes and your ears and that sort of thing while moving slowly, it just opens up creativity for me. And it's amazing how if I walk very far, by the end of the walk, you know, I'm going through a little bit physically, like I really need to stretch my calves or something. But it's like every tree is so vibrant, like any color or what I see just is so sharp and vibrant, and that inspires me so much. The other thing is the people in my life, also people I don't know that I see, you know, making amazing work creatively, even just people who give to others. I mean, everything has the power to be inspirational, even the mundane.
What I draw inspiration from, I think, for me, drawing inspiration, yeah, does come in many forms. If I look at, in general, I'm definitely inspired by, fortunate enough to have siblings, older siblings. I'm the youngest of 3 older siblings. There's 4 of us. And so I look at the types of lives they lead and the things that they do, and I definitely think, man, if I could be a little bit more like that. And I'm sure I've done that from the time I was little. So I've had these sibling role models to follow. And so there's definitely some inspiration there on a day-to-day basis. But when it comes specifically to the performing arts, I would say that inspiration, as it comes for many, is listening to different types of music. I think that when I hear music, it just simply makes me want to move in a different way, and I want to be able to see how that can translate into our apparatus, and how that can, transpose into something greater than that, of an expression of a small story or something like that, But definitely just listening to music is a great way to take you to another place and be inspired and come up with new ideas. And I would say the other places, I do a lot of teaching, and it doesn't matter who I'm teaching, whether it's tumbling to a 5 or 6-year-old. Again, kids say the darndest things, right? And so there's inspiration from the way they see things is so different. You forget about that as an adult, talking to adults all the time, but it's taking that sort of thought and ideas and imagination from how other people see things. And when they could be an adult, but if they've never been on the wheel or if they've never experienced it, they'll say, oh, so it's kind of like this. And in my head, I'm thinking, no, it's not like that at all. But now I actually see how you understand it. And that is fascinating. And so to bring these types of ideas that you wouldn't normally, beginners in the wheel and in gymnastics or movement, they're going to make mistakes. And when they do, it's not like trying to correct it. It's like, wait, what was it that you just did? Because that was pretty cool. Keep that train of thought. Don't ever lose that, because that's really neat. But we're also going to learn it like this too, and might be a little better for your body. But yeah, just some really creative things happen just in the process of doing. And so not to have any sort of end goal to working in the wheel or whatever your activity is, but just kind of do it for the pleasure of it and let the mistakes happen, because within that is a lot of inspiration. Of course, I'm coming from a physical fitness standpoint, so certainly a lot of things. I've been mentioned, like flying trapeze, I think would be amazing to see in a virtual reality, primarily because it's something that's accessible, similar to Cyr Wheel. It's accessible, but not everyone can do it. That's definitely something when they see people doing, whether it's Cyr Wheel or flying trapeze, it's always a, wow, that's crazy, they're way up there. But when you actually take a class for the first time and go up the 20-some feet and look down, that is completely different, and it's not anything that you would have expected. Even though you were wowed by looking at it here, when you're up there, totally different. And so I think experiences like that are yet still accessible to people, that would maybe inspire them to take that martial arts class or whatever lesson it is, that aerial lesson. And then there's also a lot of other, I think, content that we probably wouldn't normally think about doing. Most people don't think about ever being a mechanic or something, but I'm someone that spent a lot of time under a car and holding a flashlight for their dad while they're working on cars when they can still be worked on and things like that. But to really look down in there and see in there and really what goes on when you're taking something apart and how much has to come out, pull an engine just to get to one thing that was not accessible. Like, being up inside there is quite different for some people. I don't think they could ever quite imagine that. And not in necessarily a dirty, greasy sense, but maybe that too. But just seeing what that's really like. And I just use that as an example, but there's so many interesting fields out there where we just know things sort of happen, but we don't really know how. We just kind of have an idea of what they happen, but suddenly, like, to be in the middle of that, you'd be like, I had no idea, and I think my mechanic doesn't get paid enough, or whatever it is, Maybe even that goes for surgery, if those who could handle blood and things like that, but I might not watch that one.
I would say, coming from a performance background, as a performer, The way it feels when you get on stage and start teching with lights, like a regular proscenium stage, for example, is an amazing feeling. And the experience of watching from the wings is an amazing feeling, and being in the audience as well. But to actually have a show where, you know, ballet, for example, as all the dancers are moving around, to actually have, you know, see this from the stage and what it's like for that person crisscrossing the stage and that sort of thing, I think that could be really cool and give dance a little bit of a boost in, at least in the United States, where it's less attended than other countries. It is a beautiful thing to be on a stage, and I think it would feel like you're kind of dancing in a whirlwind with the dancers. So that's something I would love to see. The VRLU team is so fun and kind and very patient.
Extremely.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are great, and I don't know, thank you so much for this experience.
Yeah, working with the VRLU team, best experience in the world. I would say if someone has the opportunity to have really some meaningful content that's out there, they would be the ones to contact, because it's not just about creating the content or documenting the content, but just the overall experience and professionalism. Something that you're just not going to get every day. Everyone's on the same page, and there's just a great effort to communicate, even if we don't communicate right back right away. But it's comforting though that someone's like knowing that hey, these people are on top of it, and this is going to happen. And so, and I would say the other thing that really sticks out for me is having a group of people when we have athletes together, and the team is always upbeat, ready to go. They're not afraid to be loud and say, hey, you know, what's up? Let's get going. Is everyone doing a great job, or is everyone, you know, enjoying themselves, or whatever it is. But that type of energy really, really helps, because a day can get really long unless someone's willing to just always be positive. But that's, again, it's infectious. And so, yeah,
they're great and professional and very fun and kind. We couldn't have had a better experience.
The message that I would like our viewers to come away with after watching our Cyr Wheel program would be that this is really something for everybody. And if you've never seen somebody ride a bike before, don't even know what that is, and someone takes you and they see someone dropping off of a half pipe and say, we're going to go bike riding tomorrow, you'd be like, I don't think that's for me. And what we really want people to understand is Cyr Wheel, if you're watching a show and you see someone going upside down and rolling around, and it's very magical, and it's great to be swept away by that. That's part of the fun of seeing a show. But this is an apparatus that is very versatile, and it can cover a lot of areas from therapy to physical fitness to just enjoyment for the family to then I want it to be a career in a performing art. So there's a little bit something for everyone, regardless of their age or ability. The only thing is if they're interested in doing it, and if they are, then they should definitely seek us out, or seek, go ahead and go for it. Have fun.
You won't run over your fingers.
Yeah.